You'll see Barrett Brooks, Seth Joyner, Ray Didinger, and Michael Barkan tonight on Comcast Sportsnet with Eagles pre- and post-game live. And our man Barrett Brooks with Barrett's Breakdown right now on the Sports Bash 97.3 ESPN. Happy belated Thanksgiving, Barrett. What's up, my friend?
How's everything going? Everybody have a good holiday?
It was very busy, a lot of football, and, man, it seems like we are jamming into this season where we are at the spot. When you played in the game, Thanksgiving, is that the barometer? Is that where, like, you start to see the separation?
That's usually right when everybody starts honing down and going into that fourth season. Usually break it up into quarters. And I think this is about the time where you get into that. You start going into the fourth quarter. I think, the first six games I'm sorry, 4 games in the preseason going into 2 games is where you get that first quarter. Then you go from there. You start going into the second quarter all the way up until you get like the 8th or 9th game. Then from there, you go into a place where everybody starts to hone down and you know who they are and what direction they are. People start to get a little, meet in between them as far as who's going to the playoffs and who's going to start taking over. It's not until that fourth quarter when it's beginning to start, when the third going into the fourth, where teams start setting themselves apart when they go into the playoffs.
Hey, Barrett, 4-6. Is this a scary night for Philadelphia? The Packers are 4-6, terrible defensively. Eagles have been really good at home, but is this the kind of night that you just get a scary feeling in that gut? You get that gut feeling of this is the wrong week to play the Packers, or is this team as bad as the last 4 games during this losing streak suggest?
Well, this is a team that can't afford to go in and play to the level of their competition. And I think, that's what the Eagles fall themselves into a lot of the time, with the exception of last week where, you just knew Seattle was the dominant team. But they always play down to their competition, and they don't play as well as they should have. It just so what happens is that the teams that they did lose to have been pretty good. The Lions turned out to be a lot better than we thought, and Washington turned out to be a lot better than we thought. So, if you really look at it, diagnose it, the Eagles cannot have this be a trap game for them. Understand they play very well at home. They're comfortable when they're at home. But there's a lot of things they can't take for granted simply because, Sam Marlowe's not in the lineup. The offensive line will be, a one-man down with Sam Marlowe. They'll move Barbie over like they should have did in the first place, but you don't understand why they did it. It turned out pretty good with Sam Marlowe playing. Not Sam Marlowe, but Big D playing the way he's playing. Big D's been playing well. So he's out of the lineup this week. That to change some things around. So then you don't have Ryan coming in, and he's not playing. So I really don't want this to be a trap game, but I can't see them doing that simply because they have too many holes, too many things going on in that locker room for them to take anything for granted. NA is not playing up to his abilities, and at this point, NA is just what it is. That's nothing Aguilar, just in case you guys don't know. NA, he hasn't been applicable for a long time, so that's why I call him NA.
It's a program.
Yeah, so do you anticipate Aguilar sitting tonight? Is that what you would do?
I would, but he's too valuable for this team right now, even though he hasn't been playing well. They just can't afford to. Who they're going to put in? Everybody's screaming Paul Turner. Paul Turner played well in the preseason. This is a totally different ball game that he's going to be going up against. He's the 4th receiver. He's going to come in on downs where they bring in 4 receivers. He won't get that much burn, or he shouldn't get that much burn in regular offense or regular situations. If he gets a lot of burn, this Eagles team is really, really, really up against the wall, and they're trying to fight their way out of a situation where their receiving core just is not good at all. So that's the only way I see him playing, if they're up against the wall and he had to come in sparingly. But we can't take a chance at him going in there and messing things up. He can play well during the preseason, but it's a totally different ball game going into regular season.
Barrett Brooks with us as we break down the Eagles and the Packers. Barrett, the Packers, one of only 4 teams in the NFL to allow 700-plus receiving yards to opposing tight ends. So with that in mind, do you think this is a big Zach Ertz, Brent Selleck, Trey Burton kind of game?
This is absolutely what you have to do. Those are our most reliable receivers. They have the best hands on the team. Trey Burton has turned out to be a bigger player in this offense than they originally thought. He's a guy that can stretch the defense a little bit, and he runs corner routes and he runs dig routes just as good as any of the receivers at this point. So you got to get his number called a lot in this game. And then we've always been talking about Zach Ertz being a guy in which we thought he was going to turn the corner this year. He was going to be a more dominant tight end. We whispered to him being like a Gates type of guy, maybe even a guy that can come in and be dominant at the hybrid tight end position. And that's where I see him. He's not necessarily a tight end. He's been a hybrid guy, kind of like Trey is becoming. He has to be a guy that can run out in space, a Gonzalez type of guy.
Yeah, and I've been noticing watching the games more recently, not only the Eagles, but other teams are splitting their tight ends out a little wide. Like if last night in the Chiefs game, if they don't have wide receivers that are top level, they use Kelsey out wide there. And the Eagles tried to do that a little bit a couple of weeks ago, Barrett, where they split out guys. They say, look, our wideouts aren't good enough. We'll split our tight ends out.
And that's what they're going to have to do, especially with, Sproles. He can also factor him in as a guy that's going to play well in the slot, play well out there, in space, being the wide receiver. He can be the widest guy. And I think it creates matchup problems for defenses. He's too big for a corner, but he's too quick for a linebacker. I'm talking about, a guy, he's one of those guys that you have to put him in different situations where he's big enough to be a guy that can go out there and make some plays up against a smaller DB, and that's what we want him, against a smaller DB. If you put Sproles out there, he's going to be the same size as the DB, so, we really don't want him out there. But put Ertz out there, he'll be bigger than the DB, he's faster than the linebacker. So that's an ideal situation for him. You put him against Cam Chancellor last year, and he ate Cam Chancellor up this last game. Let's do the same thing. Let's put him in a position where he can create that matchup problem for teams.
Two parts here, Barrett. What effect will it have to not have Ryan Matthews in the lineup? And with that in mind, how much do you think we see of Wendell Smallwood? How much do they use him?
Oh, that's huge that he's not in the lineup, because he finally started coming to his own as being that every down back that they wanted him to be, that thumping back, a consistent back. So he's what they were wanting for the regular part of the season. With him being gone, this is definitely a game where Wendell Smallwood could show America on Monday night with the lights that he's a lot better than what people gave him credit for. He's a guy that runs in between the tackles. He doesn't necessarily go out and run well in space, but in between the tackles, he has a unique advantage of them not being able to see him going in between those big tackles and guards and defensive linemen. They find it hard to find him, and he picks those creases up pretty well. So he slowed the game down a little bit for himself. He's now running and being patient, letting his blocks develop, and then once he does find a little hole, he goes straight through it. And, he's starting to play better now.
Comcast pre- and post-game Eagles analyst and Breakfast on Broad participant Barrett Brooks with us here on 97.3 ESPN. It's been well documented, Barrett, how bad the Packers' defense is, but is running the ball still the best way and the best formula or path to victory, as Mike likes to say, for the Eagles to win tonight?
Well, it's going to have to be that. All those long pass plays you saw Washington execute against Green Bay were more so plays in which they ran play action, which opened up the linebacker in between the linebacker and the safeties, those big zones, the big voided zones. We don't have near the receivers that Washington has, but they've been given a big chunk simply because guys would run the ball on them and then go over the top on them. In order for this team to execute, we can't continue to put all this pressure on a rookie quarterback in Carson Wentz and think that he can just go out there and throw 45 times a game. That's just not a good recipe for us to be successful. We have to go in, run the ball consistently, get them used to running the ball, and then go over the top with the tight ends and these special personnel packages like 12 personnel, one running back, 2 tight ends, or 13 personnel, one running back, and 3 tight ends. Those are all run personnel packages that you can put in there and then have these tight ends that run pretty well out in space go over the top and beat these DBs who can't really cover or do anything close to covering out there in the secondary.
Barrett Brooks is with us looking at tonight's Eagles-Packers game. You can hear that coming up with coverage at 7:30 here on 97.3 ESPN. Barrett, obviously for Philadelphia, they haven't had a lot of let's say, help from the wide receivers this year at all. I mean, you get the drops. You watch games all over the league, and you see a lot of guys, that are pretty unheralded. Guys you never heard of. You watch the Chiefs last night. Tyreek Hill. You look at the Redskins. I think that kid Crowder is really a big part of their offense. Do you think it's time for the Eagles to maybe give one of these guys Treggs or, Turner? I understand this is a tough spot getting thrown at this, but should they give one of these guys an opportunity because the guys that they are giving opportunities haven't stepped up? Is it time to just do it to say, look, because of your performance, we got to give someone else an opportunity?
These guys just showed a lot during preseason. That's Treggs. And the fact that, he's a burner. He showed when he first got there in practice that he could run. Turner's a guy that showed it during the preseason that he could play and that he belongs to be on this team. Whether they put him in now or they put him in later on, he's going to have to go out there simply because we have nothing else left. If he can catch, he's an asset right now. He's not, if he goes in and catches a little 5 to 10 yard route, at least he's catching the ball, has the ability to catch the ball, and I think that Carson will be confident in the fact that he will catch it. Carson, whether he wants to say it or not, is losing a lot of confidence in those guys, so he's tending not to throw to them. And that just comes from them just dropping the ball too much. He doesn't like that. He wants his offense to keep going, and he can't rely on his receivers to do it. So I would go in a different direction also. I would go to the running backs. I would go to the tight ends as opposed to going to his starting receivers. Matthews still drops the ball, and, like I say, N.A. is at a point where he's just having brain farts right now. So I would like to see what Treggs can do if he can take the top off the defense, become that threat that we saw him be the first time he stepped on the field. But I think Turner, he's a guy that, even if he goes in and he catches a little out route, he catches a little seam route, those are the things that build confidence in a rookie quarterback, and those are the things he needs. He needs some a little bit of a gift because he hasn't had a gift to open up in a long time in one of his receivers. He hasn't had that. So let's give him a gift tonight. Maybe allow him to throw it up underneath the coverage. People worried about Selleck and all those guys, and then go underneath a guy like Turner and Treggs going over the top.
Barrett, defensively, the Eagles have to face a guy tonight that's probably a future Hall of Famer, and Aaron Rodgers, a guy who's made a career out of keeping plays alive with his feet and throwing on the run, and it's kind of a lot like what they had to do against Russell Wilson. How does the defense answer a guy like Aaron Rodgers and be successful against a guy like that can extend plays for so long?
Well, at least they have a game plan. They can kind of implement from what they saw last week. They saw the deficiencies, and they understand they're going to have to blitz him a little more. When they blitzed Russell Wilson last week, they had some success, especially when they were their backs were against the goal line. They blitzed him twice in a row and, had guys jumping off sides. This is still a really, really good pass rush for our defensive line. These guys do very, very well at home because they'll have the crowd on their side as a Monday night. If they could do that, get them rattled a little bit, you got Brandon Graham going against Balaga. That's going to be a key matchup. If they can just rush them a little bit, get them moving around a little bit, and then having our DBs go through this scramble drill, kind of like what they didn't do against Wilson, and start plastering and following these guys wherever they go, I think that they will be okay. There's just so many mix-up in the rotation at the DB position that it's just really hard to get some guys to go out there and play consistent. We look at Watkins. Watkins, one of those hybrid type of guys, played corner and he played safety. So he's going to have a big game. They're going to be looking for him to do some things, because right now Malcolm Jenkins has to play in the slot. So he has to make some plays. It's imperative that he comes up and steps up big against these receivers that Aaron Rodgers has. I mean, these guys can run. All of them can run. Cobb can run. Jordy Nelson used to be able to run, but he's played smarter now. He runs better routes. All these guys need to be stopped. In order for them to do it, they're going to have to plaster around them. They're going to have to keep them underneath and let them catch things and develop in front of them as opposed to going over the top.
And here's one for you, Barrett. The last time James Starks started a game against the Eagles, he went off for 123 yards in the 2010 playoffs. Now, that's quite a while ago, but what do you think the Eagles' run defense is going to look like against the Packers tonight?
Well, we say it all the time. We got to make him one-dimensional, and Starks is, when he's healthy, he's a pretty good back. But I have faith that these guys will, on their way to the quarterback, they'll stop the run. It's going to be huge. The Hicks plays a phenomenal game. He's going to be the guy that's going to have to set the tempo in stopping the run. Those guys up front want to get up and make sacks, and if they run these draw plays to try to get it up underneath the soft coverage behind the defensive line, and we're running, trap plays, running up all kind of screen plays, running plays in which, they take advantage of the aggressiveness of the defensive line. He's got to be big there making plays. He and Nigel Bradham have to make the plays underneath because that's what a team does against the guys that rush the passer so well. They try to get in that soft coverage in between the linebackers and the defensive line by running screens, by running draw plays, and running trap plays. And these guys have to tackle at that second level.
Barrett Brooks with us. We're breaking down tonight's Eagles and Packers game. And, one area, how much goes into special teams during the course of a week, Barrett? Because they are, Green Bay, 31st overall in special teams. They're dreadful in that area, and we know that's something where the Eagles really excel in. I wonder how much, the Eagles put into special teams how much teams, when you played, how much goes into special teams, because that seems to be an area where they could really make this game lopsided in their favor, is getting good returns, getting good field position.
Well, hopefully Coach Fipp, has these guys going. They have a lot of confidence in Coach, and then I really believe that this is really going to be what this is going to make this victory for the Eagles. The special teams, I think they get a return. They're not going to run Sproles as much in the regular offense, so he'll be fresh. Because with that rib injury, you don't want him to play a lot of plays at offense. You want to keep him rested and understand that he's going to have labored breathing because he has his ribs broken. So, hopefully just have him in on special teams. That one burst, go him out there and do it. That one burst, return something. Just get the odds going to our favor because we're going to need more than offensive side of the ball scoring points. We have to score in the special teams. And, Donnie Jones has got to flip the table like he's been doing. He flips sides of the field just as good as any corner in the league. And he's going to be crucial that he pins them down deep, making Aaron Rodgers run a long field as opposed to him getting it, dinking and dunking. So, it's, right now, Dante Jones is going to have to be a key player, and Sproles in the return game is really going to have to be key.
Mike talked about the atmosphere of a Monday Night Football game, Barrett. We haven't talked about the 12th man, if you will. That's Seattle's coin, and that's their phrase. But the fact that it's going to be obviously a packed situation at the link, emotions going, and it's an elimination game for both teams. Just what you think the atmosphere and the emotions going to be like tonight at the game.
It's going to be a blackout. They'll be in their all-black jerseys. They'll be hyped because of that. And our fans understand our backs are against the wall. And whenever your back's against the wall, you got to come out like a wounded animal, fighting your way for life. And the Eagles are not out the playoff position right now, so they can go out and really, really make an impact in the standings going into this. They're one game out of being in the playoffs. And if they get one game up, and looking, at everybody else's record, especially Washington, where are they 6-4-1 at this point? If I'm not mistaken,
Washington 7-4-1, right?
6-4-1. You're
6-4-1.
correct. Yep. 6-4-1.
So since they're 6-4-1, we'll be right there with Washington, and we still got to play them. So this is going to be crucial that they get up and play well, get back in the top of the standings as far as that playoff situation. And the biggest thing, get some confidence going into the next couple of games where they have to play away a little bit. They can beat Cincinnati and they can also beat Baltimore. This will be the game that really puts them in a position that shows, hey, we're still in it. If they lose this game, it's going to be hard for them to even think about going to the playoffs. If they win this game, it's a springboard of them going into these road and away places and then getting a win in these away places because they'll have hope from going in and beating this Green Bay Packer team.
And before we let you go, Merrill Reese and Jeremiah Trotter going to the Eagles Ring of Honor tonight. Any thoughts on both of those guys and things you'd like to share about those two gentlemen?
It's incredible. Coming up through, what I've been through as far as being in the league and seeing Trot come in as a young man, understanding what was all going through him his rookie year. His father had just passed away. He played with special teams, on a scout team. He worked his way up the hard way. It's definitely something I commend him for, and it's much deserved. And with him, it'll be definitely appreciated from the humble beginnings that he comes from. And then everybody knows Mr. Reese, Merrill Reese, the voice of the Eagles. And I could just remember going back and listening to the game. After the game, just listening to the broadcast, they kept playing it over and over on the fifth down play against Dallas. That was just an unbelievable time. To be on the Eagles team, and I still listen to that, and I still get goosebumps about, Switzer trying to go out there and run the same play against an Eagles defense that was really, really good at that time. Dana Stubblefield, all those guys, Red Hall, guys that, you really don't know about, you really don't hear about, but really, really good. Andy Harmon. These guys played well in a system in which, they rushed the passer well, played the run well, and just a dynamic team as far as the different side of the ball. They saved us a lot of the time just from them playing well and getting us into the playoffs. So they stopped them on the fifth down, and all I heard was Merrill Reese, they stopped them. They stopped them. That's just unbelievable.
He did it again.
That's what he did.
They do it again.
So, you got to love that. And plus, Merrill Reese, the first date I had with my wife, he's the one that he told me I should marry my wife. So I listened to him.
Oh, there's the nugget.
Yeah.
Oh, who knew?
Yeah.
Who knew? All right.
Merrill Reese picked the
yeah.
CEO and president of Brooks Enterprises.
She's a great CEO
Exactly.
and president. I have met
Right,
Mrs.
yeah.
Brooks many times.
A lovely woman.
She's a lot of fun. And hey, listen, tonight it's as Pete mentioned, elimination type of game. Eagles at home, they're unbeaten there, and you're right. These last 5 weeks, it's amazing. There's still a long way to go. Remember, the Eagles were 3-0. 3-0 turns into 3-2 real fast in a 5-week span. So they got to get this one tonight to keep that home thing going because they do have 2 more road trips still to come. But they do have important conference games, divisional games, Washington, New York, and Dallas, all at home. But those games get a little less meaningful if they don't win this one tonight. So, Barrett, break it down for us. What's the key tonight, and how do you see it turning out?
Well, the key tonight is defensively holding them to one dimension, making Rodgers beat you. And, of course, he can do that. But when you have the type of defense that can rush the passer like we have, it'll put us in a good situation. When you let those guys, them dogs up front, go out and eat and go out and hunt, it's really, really hard to pass against them. So that's the major key. But then if you look at it from an offensive standpoint, stay consistent, run the ball, keep the ball out of Aaron Rodgers' hands in the first place. They have to be consistent with that. And the biggest thing of all, special teams have to step up. They have to show that, they are the one of the number one special teams in the league. If they can score, that's just, bonus points for this Eagles team. And it's going to be, they have to get it done. They have to get it done. So special teams, number one, defense rushing the passer, number two, and being consistent and running the rock is number three on the offensive side of the ball.
All right, Barrett Brooks here on the Sports Bash 97.3 ESPN. Coverage starts at 7:30 right here. You'll see Barrett, Seth, Ray Diddy, and Michael Barkan over on television on Comcast Sports.
When the season's done, Barrett, you bring that president and CEO down. Mike and I will take care of you guys, okay?
I appreciate it, man. I appreciate it. And like I said, 28-22, let's go, Birds.